Have you ever wondered why every stalk of corn at the farmer's market seems to cost the exact same, but your morning coffee can be $1 more just by crossing the street? Well, the answer has everything to do with the hidden rules of the markets we live in, these invisible games that businesses play every single day. And today, we're going to make those rules visible. All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get the lay of the land. We're talking price, power, and products. Then we'll explore the three main arenas: the perfect market, the absolute power of a single seller, and that crowded, competitive middle ground where most businesses actually operate. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about why any of this matters to you. So before we dive too deep, let's get a quick bird's eye view of the three main market structures we're going to unpack. You can think of this as the playbook for the entire economy. And here it is, the whole spectrum laid out really clearly. On one end, you've got perfect competition. Just tons of sellers, all with identical products, and they have zero power to set prices. Then, on the complete opposite end, you've got a monopoly. Just one seller, a totally unique product, and all the power. And right there in the middle, where things get really interesting, is monopolistic competition. Okay, let's kick things off with what you might call the ideal world of economics: perfect competition. Think of this as the baseline game. You know, the simplest set of rules that really helps us understand everything else. So in this world, no single company can influence the price. Not one. They are all what we call price takers, which means they just have to accept whatever price the market is offering that day. You know, the closest thing we have in the real world is probably a big farmer's market. One farmer can't just decide to charge double for their corn, right? They'd sell absolutely nothing. So you've got these really strict rules that define this game. Homogeneous product just means you literally can't tell the difference between one company's stuff and another's. Perfect information means everyone knows the going price for everything. And free entry and exit is huge. It means anyone can jump into the market and start selling, or just pack up and leave with no barriers at all. So if you're a manager in this market, how do you win? Well, it all boils down to a really simple formula. You keep making and selling units as long as the market price is at least what it costs you to make that one extra unit. That's your marginal cost. The moment it costs you more to make it than you can sell it for, you stop. Simple as that. Okay, but what happens when things go south? This is a huge question every business faces eventually. The market price drops, and suddenly you're in the red. So do you keep the lights on and just hope things turn around? Or do you cut your losses and shut the doors to stop the bleeding? And here's the answer, which is actually pretty logical when you think about it. As long as the price you're getting covers your average variable cost, so think your raw materials, your hourly workers, it actually makes sense to stay open. Yeah, you might be losing money overall because of fixed costs like rent, but you're losing less money than if you shut down completely and still had to pay that rent. Now, this is the brutal reality of perfect competition. If firms are making a nice profit, other people see that and they rush into the market. But more sellers means more supply, and more supply pushes prices down. This whole process just keeps going until the profits basically vanish. It is an incredibly efficient market for sure, but it is a tough world to survive in. All right, let's flip the script completely. We're going from one extreme to the other. Let's enter the world of the single, all-powerful seller, the monopoly. In this game, there's only one player, and they get to set all the rules. A great example is your local electric company. If you want power for your home, you have exactly one choice. That single company is the entire market. So how does a company even become the only player in the game? Well, there are a few ways it can happen. Sometimes a company just gets so big and efficient that its costs are way lower than any potential competitor. Other times, the government steps in and creates a legal barrier, like a patent. Or maybe a firm is just uniquely good at making a whole bunch of related things all under one roof. And this is where the rulebook completely changes. See, a monopolist doesn't really look at price. They look at something called marginal revenue. That's the extra money they get from selling just one more unit. And because they're the only seller, if they want to sell one more, they usually have to lower the price on all their units. So their marginal revenue is actually less than the price. Okay, this next part is a little mind-bending, but it's really important. A supply curve is supposed to show how much a firm will produce at any given market price. But a monopolist doesn't take the price, they make the price. They pick the exact quantity and price combination that makes them the most money. So the whole idea of a supply curve, it just doesn't even apply here. All right, so we've seen both extremes. Now let's dive into that messy, creative, and super competitive middle ground, which is where most of the brands you know and love actually live. This is the world that you and I live in every single day. It's the world of branding, advertising, and choice. You've got dozens of places to get a burger or a cup of coffee, and every single one of them is trying to convince you that their product is just a little different, a little bit better. It's a mix of the two worlds we just talked about. And look, you can see how this looks a lot like perfect competition, right? There are many sellers, and it's easy to enter or leave the market. But there is one massive twist. The products are not identical. And that single difference, that little bit of uniqueness, gives each company some market power. This is exactly why your favorite coffee shop has that specific vibe, or why one brand of jeans just feels different from another. Companies spend billions of dollars on advertising and branding to convince you that their product is special. What they're really trying to do is create a mini monopoly in your mind for their specific version of that product. So here's the big takeaway. In the short term, these companies act like little monopolists. They set their prices using that same rule. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. But, and this is a huge but, just like in perfect competition, if they start making too much money, new restaurants and new clothing stores will open up, copying their ideas and stealing customers until all those extra profits are gone. So, okay, we've walked through all these economic models. But why should you actually care about any of this? Because understanding these games gives you a totally new lens to see the world. They directly impact your wallet, the choices you have, and the entire economy you live in. And you can see the real cost to society right here. Compared to a perfectly competitive market, a monopoly produces less stuff and charges a higher price for it. This creates something economists call deadweight loss. It's a loss for everybody, because there are people out there who would have happily bought the product at a price above what it cost to make, but the monopolist just prices them out of the market. That value is just gone. It vanishes. So here it is, the final scorecard. This sums up the trade-offs perfectly. Perfect competition is amazing for us, the consumers, but monopolies can be incredibly profitable for the company at a pretty big cost to society. And look at that middle ground. It gives us choice and innovation, but just like perfect competition, it almost always ends with zero long-run profits for the businesses. So now you have the tools. You can see the hidden structures shaping our economy, from the gas pump to the grocery store. You can see the strategies, the power dynamics, and the pricing rules that are at play all around you. The only question left is, what are you going to do with that knowledge?